Hey guys, welcome back to Eating with Aldene. It's Aldene, and today we are going to be making some roti. Yay! I love roti, I love curry, so I'm excited to finally make roti for you guys and put it here on my channel. So yeah, thank you for joining me on Eating with Aldene. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get right into it. Okay guys, so today's drink of the day is a little bit of this. Mixing here nice. I mixed it with some peach 5 Alive, so I got a little like fake rum punch going on. So that is today's drink of the day. I will put that info in my description box. Gotta enjoy yourself while you're cooking, you know what I mean? Put on music that you like, have a little wine, a little drink, nothing wrong with that. So let's get started on the roti. I'm going to be making paratha today. So okay, I guess I got to do a little history lesson here. So my parents are Caribbean, from different islands, but Caribbean nonetheless. And there was a lot of indentured workers who came from India to different parts of the Caribbean, from the northern, mostly northern Indian, came to different parts of the Caribbean, and they settled, and obviously with them came their beautiful culture, their religion, and of course the food. So this is one of the things they blessed the Caribbean with. This style of roti, I think, is definitely more Caribbean style than like traditional paratha that you would get from someone who's actually from India versus Indian heritage and Caribbean. So with respect to that, I try to keep things as authentic as possible when I'm making food from other cultures. So for instance, like the chicken wonton video, I tried to keep my wonton recipe fairly traditional. And if I'm making like a fusion or something like that, I'll kind of let you guys know that I'm putting my spin on it. But for the most part, I try to stay within the realm of what's generally accepted to be that food within that culture. So this is Trinidad style paratha, better known as bus up shirt. So that's because it has a lot of layers of butter or ghee in it, which makes it really flaky and delicious. So I'm going to start. So here we have 4 cups of flour, and to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of brown sugar, and the brown sugar helps with the caramelization. So when we're cooking it on the tawa, which is like a flat griddle, it's an Indian style flat griddle, it will create nice caramelization, which is definitely what you want to see with a good bus up shot. I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of salt, and these are our dry ingredients. I learned how to make roti on my own because on my Trinidadian side, like, I've never learned to make it from a family member, and we all love roti, and I'm like, as much as it's convenient to go to the roti shop and like pay $2 for a skin is what you would call one whole, God, I don't want to say the word bread, but basically you would call one of the roti breads is what you call a skin. So you order as many as you would like. One skin can feed about, I'm gonna say 2 to 3 people. It depends on how hungry you are and how many servings you want. So instead of going out and like buying skins, I'm like, fuck it, I'm tired of this, I want to make it myself. So this recipe I'm using, I actually got from another YouTuber, so I want to give that credit to Cooking with Ria. I will put the info in her description box, linking straight to her video since this is her recipe. Don't want to take credit for it, but it worked out very well for me. And to this I'm going to add about 3/4 of a cup of lukewarm water. I'm not going to add all of it at once. You like this crumbly texture is kind of what we're going for. Okay, I need a bit more water here. You don't want your dough too wet, but this still needs a little bit more water so that all the extra dough can mix in there. And you can see I'm folding the dough, I'm not mixing it per se. So let me grab a bit of water. I've made it a few times, so I can just tell now when it's enough water that I can begin to knead it with my hands, or if it needs more. Okay, this needs a tiny bit more water and we're almost there. Getting flour everywhere. It's all good. Okay, this is about good. Now I'm gonna take some of my bench flour. So that just, bench flour is just the flour that you put down on your work surface. Try not to shake my camera up too much here. Alright, let's get this braced. Okay, I want to knead it. So fold it in with your 4 fingers and kind of bring it back, and then push with your palm. You want to just work in all that extra flour that you have, and this shaggy dough is like exactly the texture that we're going for. I don't want it to be like wet. Sorry if my technique looks off. I don't want to put too much force into it and shake up the camera here. So alright, this needs a bit more water because I don't want to overwork the dough. So let me bring a bit more water to this. Just add in a bit like that. Perfect. Okay. Again, I apologize for the shakiness. Go. You can see how the dough is changing now, and it's forming a lot better. Everything is solidifying, and you can still see that it's shaggy. It's not an entirely smooth dough. So I want to incorporate everything, but I don't want to overmix it. I love using a stainless steel countertop to work with doughs. It's just a lot easier. Okay, so I know we kind of jumped ahead here. So from the 4 cups of flour, I had made that big dough ball that I had covered in oil and let rest. Okay, so from that dough ball, I split it into 8 smaller dough balls. Here I'm using my handy dandy rolling stick because rolling pins are trash, and I'm rolling out one of the small 8 dough balls. So out of the 4 cups of flours, I got 8 dough balls, and those 8 balls will create 8 bust up shot in the end. So yes, right now you're just seeing me flatten it out with my rolling pin. It's definitely really important to make sure anytime you're rolling out a dough that you pick it up and flip it and turn it. So that way you're changing the direction in which you are rolling it out. You just really want to create an even layer, and this is the best way to do it while maintaining an even thickness. So I'm just going ahead here and I rolled it out nice and thin. This is the size I want it. I'm now taking a combination of canola oil and butter that I melted. You can use ghee, margarine, whatever type of butter substitute you have, mix it with oil, and that's what I'm gonna layer inside of the roti here. So that's what's gonna create that flaky texture that's like so synonymous with a really good bust up shot. So I'm gonna just spread it evenly. At first I was using about 1 tablespoon here as my measurement. That was way too much. But honestly, because I made these dough balls first, you'll see later, but once I rolled them out, these became the last ones that I cooked. So I think it was actually a benefit using a bit more oil because they didn't dry out in that time. So I just took my little paring knife. I cut diagonally to about the 4 o'clock mark with my knife, and now I'm just rolling it up. Rolling it. So again, I got this recipe from Cooking with Ria. I adjusted the recipe myself because my ingredients were just different. Like I needed a bit more of some things, but the technique and everything I got from her. The one thing I could not do is once you get to this point, if you guys look at her video, she kind of inverts the dough ball into itself. I think for beginners, it's really challenging and it's difficult to kind of like conceptualize and actually do. So what I do is I just tuck in the end, I roll that bitch up like a snail, make sure that everything's kind of folded. I pin the bottom underneath the dough ball like you're seeing, so I create a little bit of a pinwheel, and I just kind of hold everything together like that. So it literally looks like a snail, but I find that that's the best way. I put it on a plate that I lined with saran wrap and a little bit of bench flour, and boom, I'm gonna go ahead and continue to roll these dough balls. I'm gonna fill the rest of them with the oil and butter mixture, and I'm gonna roll them into that little snail shape, and I'm gonna let them rest. While those are resting, I'm gonna cook everything else for my curry, and those can kind of rest for a while because I find the longer they rest, just the softer the dough gets because the oil is kind of penetrating it. So I don't mind. Some people may tell you that you don't want to let it rest before you cook it. In my experience, it's worked out well for me. So I'll show you one more time. I'm gonna fully roll out this ball. I would say roll it to the size of your tawa. So I think mine's 13. No, I'm not even gonna make up a number like I remember what the diameter is. I don't remember the diameter of my tawa. So I'm just kind of like eyeballing it here and just kind of rolling it to make it a bit bigger than the plate. So I'm rolling it out with the rolling stick. You want to just make sure you're applying even pressure. And definitely one thing I will say with roti is you want those ends thin, because when you put that on the tawa, all the middle is gonna get nice and heated, but if your ends are too thick, oh, it's gonna get gummy and gross. No. So you wanna make sure you roll that out. I actually flatten it out with my fingers after I use the rolling stick prior to me filling it with the oil and ghee mixture, because I really wanted to make sure that that edge was just as thin as the center so it all cooks evenly and it was not gummy. And this roti came out fire, but we'll get to that when we get there. So again, I'm just putting the oil and butter / margarine / ghee mixture all over the surface of my dough. You can see it's nice and shiny, and here's when I realized like I was using too much. This is the 3rd ball that I've made, so after this one I would have 5 more. I'm like, okay, I put too much oil, I scaled it back. Looking good. Now I'm gonna take my paring knife and just cut down from the center to about 4 o'clock. I'm gonna roll over the top part that I cut and continue to just kind of pinwheel it over. Nice, gonna keep that going over. It's kind of fun, it's easy. If you have kids, you can definitely get your kids involved. I wish I had learned this from someone who could teach me younger, but it's never too late to share the knowledge. So boom, now you guys can make your own bus-up shot at home. So I tucked in the end, rolled it up like a little pinwheel, flatten in the bottom, and boom. So now we have these done. Again, they're gonna rest on the plate, and let's get to actually cooking the curry that's gonna go along with this. Okay, so now in my Dutch pot here, I have some canola oil and a garlic clove that I just like pressed down a bit to kind of bust it up, and I'm going to brown this garlic to get the flavor out of it. So before, I used to like completely burn the garlic because growing up, that's what I was taught. When you're making curry, you must burn the garlic. All you had to burn the garlic and release the flavor now. So most times I would burn the garlic. As of lately, like if I don't feel like waiting for the garlic to fully burn, I definitely make sure it gets browned and I let it infuse. So if I don't let it burn, I let it get brown, but I just don't remove it. When I would burn the garlic, I would remove it after, so it's honestly your preference. Here I have a mixture of my 2 curry powders, which I will show you in a sec, and I mixed it with some water to create a paste so it doesn't burn. And now I'm going to cook through the curry. Typically people will say frying the curry, but I feel like frying is slightly misleading, and I also feel like if you're not experienced in making curry, if someone tells you to fry the curry, A, you'll probably just put the curry powder in the oil, which could work, probably won't work, and B, you will probably burn the curry powder. So one tip I can always suggest is mix your curry powder with some water. Be careful when you add it to the oil, of course, because you don't want it to splash back, but at this point you can see it's just kind of gently simmering. So I use Lala's and I use Beta Pack. So you can see that it's currently just simmering, and it started out really liquidy when I first poured it in, but it definitely thickens up as you cook it down. So we cook down the curry to kind of just remove that raw taste of the turmeric because it can be kind of strong on the palate. So this is just going to help mellow out the flavors, especially because I use 2 different types of curry powder. This does a really good job of blending them seamlessly. I also highly recommend the Chief Duck curry mix because that has like Amchar masala in it and it tastes fucking wicked. But nonetheless, I will continue to cook down this curry paste mixture for a few more minutes before I add the chicken. So you can see that the curry paste is getting nice and thick here, and the color has darkened and it's not stuck to the bottom of the pot. So you want to make sure you keep moving everything around. In the past when I was making curry, I definitely didn't let the paste cook out long enough, so the flavor wasn't as intense. Definitely you want to let this cook for at least 5 minutes so you'll see the color deepen. So I have some chicken that I already had seasoned up in the freezer, and once I thawed it and chopped it, I added extra stuff to it. I never freeze or marinate my meat with salt because it just draws out the moisture. So at this point, I'm going to add some salt to my chicken in my Ziploc bag and just kind of like mix it up. Yes, and now I'm going to add in the chicken. So I seasoned the chicken with like all-purpose seasoning that's always salt-free. Salt, black pepper, thyme. I used chili flakes, and then after I thawed it out, I added in fresh shadow benny, a whole scotch bonnet, a whole green onion, white onion, and now I'm gonna add in garlic actually into my curry mixture. I will eventually do a video just on curry chicken because I feel like it deserves its own video with its own recipe. I love curry very much. As I'm sure you guys can tell, because this is the second video on my channel that is curry related. Yes, you see how thick that paste got? See how that looks? That looks so good, and the smell was so good. So good, so good. Everyone makes their curry chicken differently. Like I know on my Jamaican side, like we'll fry the chicken and then kind of mix it in with like the curry sauce that you make. And you also season your chicken with a little bit of curry powder. I did put a little bit of curry powder once I took it out the freezer and it thawed. Typically, I don't add curry powder to my chicken when I'm making curry. But it's definitely all your preference. I find sometimes it still has the raw taste, so it kind of defeats the purpose to me of making a paste and cooking it down if I'm still gonna just like add the layer of raw seasoning on top of it. But again, that's just my prerogative. Cook however you feel best. I'm just showing you guys my method. And I make a really good curry, so I definitely know what I'm doing because I love me some curry. So you can see that I just mixed around the chicken and everything. Everything is coated properly in the actual mixture. I threw in about 4 sprigs of dried thyme here. And now I'm going to put the cover on this and let some of the natural juices come out to cook the chicken. And we'll get started on the aloo and chana. So now to start off my aloo and chana, I'm going to begin with some canola oil again. Pour that into the pot. And then after that, I go in straight. Oh, I lied. I add more oil. I'm a liar. And then at this point, I go in with my curry. Nope, I'm a liar again. Nope, yep, I did. Now at this point, I go in with my curry paste mixture. I burned the fuck out of my hand right there. Yep, the pan was a bit too hot, but that's just because the base of this pan was so much thinner than the Dutch pot, so it got hot really quick. So I will definitely say take your cooking vessel into consideration when you are making curry or when you have to brown something, because it may brown faster than you expect, it may brown slower than you expect. But I definitely wanted to add in this clip of me being burned so I could show you guys wagwan. And now I'm gonna add in the rest of the stuff to make some yummy aloo and chana, which you guys already saw me make in Trinidad. So my curry paste is cooking down. Now I'm throwing in my onion. So between the two dishes, I used 1 whole onion and then I just kind of like split it up between the curry chicken and the aloo and chana. This is a few cloves of garlic. Again, I just had like a bunch and I split it. So I apologize, I don't have recipes for either of the curries this time. I was mostly focused on the roti, but I did still want to show me making the curry, just because it was a bit different when I did it in Trinidad, so I wanted to kind of do the same thing in my normal setup. So I will again have a whole video just on curry chicken with like no other bullshit, so you guys can just get the recipe and the method down. So I added in my potatoes. This is probably like 5 potatoes, I think. 5 or 6 potatoes, white potatoes that I just peeled. And I tossed them in. I'm sorry I'm mixing with my right hand. I know I should be using my left hand so that A, the camera stays focused, and B, that way I'm not kind of obstructing your view. But I'm right-handed, so I just like, natural for me to use my right hand first. And here I'm like, fuck, let me switch. So yeah. Okay, look at the quality of that stir. Don't tell me that looks sus with my left hand. Like, that looks so sus compared to with my right. But I said in another video, I'm going to be ambidextrous by the end of the year, because recording these videos using my left hand as my dominant hand is actually working in my favor. So now I'm going to add in some green onion. I like to add the green onion and even like shadow beni here in different stages when I make curry, just for the layers. So yeah, and plus I love the green and the freshness. Yum. So that's my Scotch bonnet. Like, look at the color. I find when I eat curry from other people, as good as it will taste, A, there's always way too much fucking oil. There's always so much oil. It's always so greasy, and it's like, I don't think curry in the Caribbean needs to be synonymous with oil and grease, and I think it has become that, unfortunately. I don't think it needs to be greasy. So I am very cautious about how much oil that I use. So mine is not greasy. At this one, I put the cover on it and I let the shit steam. So I am adding a bit of water to my potatoes to help them cook down a little bit more. And now I'm gonna add some pumpkin that I had frozen. I had just put it in a little bowl of water to thaw out, and I just chopped it up. I'm also about to add a whole can of chana chickpeas that I rinsed off, and I'm just dashing that in. So this is really good for all you non-meat eaters out there. This is like a perfect side. And you can definitely use margarine versus butter for the roti. That way this whole meal could be vegan. I actually did use margarine because we just never have butter in my house. And butter is a little bit too rich for my palate. Like, I'm trying to learn to enjoy it because I know it makes a difference. But like in everyday life, I would actually prefer margarine. I'm weird. So now here's the second layer of the green onions that I'm adding in, and even more shadow beni. I was watching another chef cook curry chicken on her channel. This is Scotch bonnet, and she's not Caribbean, but she made a remark that pumpkin isn't something that we use typically in or with curry in Caribbean cooking, and like that's fucking false. So I slightly took offense to that because you guys who know me know how I feel about curry, and I feel like if you were gonna put that much work into cooking something, you could put the same amount of work into researching how it's normally eaten. You know what I mean? Everyone makes mistakes, but like making a general statement like pumpkin isn't something traditionally used, so I'm switching it up. Like, you're actually not. We actually always use pumpkin, and pumpkin is like one of the most common sides to go with curry. So everyone makes mistakes, you know what I mean? But just like when you're talking about food in people's culture, try your best to be respectful and be accurate. Again, we all fuck up. Like, I definitely could have made my wontons more accurate, but that's also why I didn't say I'm making Chinese wontons, you know what I mean? I didn't associate it with a country or a culture, although it was given that I was using a food from a certain culture. So just be respectful of that kind of thing. I could be making a bigger deal out of it, but I know for some people that's a really big deal. So I think you just have to have sensitivity when you're dealing with foods from other cultures, but always have a willingness to learn foods from other cultures. So I dashed in some time here. I am about to put the lid on this and let it cook down, and I will add the salt later because I don't want the china to get hard. So my curry chicken has been cooking down for probably about half an hour now, and I'm just adding a bit more water because I like my food on the drier side, but I've realized for curry most people like a lot of gravy, and the older I get, the more I can appreciate like just the gravy from the curry. Like, you'll forget the chicken or whatever else, like just give me the roti with the gravy. So I want to make sure I topped up the water because obviously it got depleted the more it cooked. So I'm just mixing this in. I love all the colors. I love that I could see the green and the red poking through amongst the curry colors. So this is wicked. I'm gonna pop the lid back on this, throw in a scotch bonnet, a whole scotch bonnet, and now we can get started on actually cooking the roti. So this is a very long video, but it is worth it, trust me. Now into the part that's actually really annoying, but it's so necessary. So here I'm just flattening out the ball, the little snail shape that I had. And if you remember, inside it's filled with a mixture of canola oil and a butter substitute of your choice. So now I'm flattening it down. After trial and error, mostly error, this has been the best way I found to flatten down the ball before I roll it. Also, just because, again, on the video that I learned this from Cooking with Ria, she had like inverted the dough ball. I don't have that skill yet, so because of how I rolled it, if I didn't flatten it out first, once I begun to roll out the dough like you're seeing now, you would start to see the little split in the dough from when I rolled it up. So I wanted to kind of make sure everything was still even. I also didn't want to push down too hard on the dough with the rolling stick, because you don't want the ghee and the oil to kind of like slip through. You don't want any tears in it. So if I was making dal puri where this is actually stuffed with cooked up dal and seasoning, you would have to be a lot more careful that you don't put a hole in it. It's a little bit more forgiving with buzz up shot, but in the same breath you kind of want to maintain that everything's solid. So there's like a little air bubble there, but I didn't bust through it. So you just kind of keep pressing it, working it with your rolling stick. You can see that you almost can't tell that I had it rolled into that pinwheel. When I first started rolling it, you could definitely see that pinwheel action, but I'm trying to get out those ridges. This will help in making it so flaky though, because of how we rolled up the layers and kind of twisted it on itself and then rolled it flat. All the oil and the butter substitutes, butter and butter substitutes are properly incorporated, and they're in a nice layer or several layers in this dough. So you want to take your time with this. This last step to me honestly is annoying. I would love to have help on this last step because I could shell out a lot more roti, but you have to be very patient here. So I'm continuously rolling it, flipping it, rolling it, flipping it, and then flattening out with my fingers like I was telling you guys earlier. So continue to do this. And this step I find is really important. So again, I apologize for the long video if you're not into long videos. If you are into long videos, thank you for rocking with me this far. I think a lot of people love roti and love curry, especially us living in diversity like Toronto. So, you know what I'm saying? I don't know anyone my age that can make roti, and if they can, they definitely don't show other people. So I want to show other people my age how to make something that I know we all love and hopefully doesn't seem as intimidating. It definitely takes some time, but is worth it, and really it's not that hard. I can't even make cake. Like, I can't even make banana bread. So this will show you the level of difficulty. If you can make banana bread, you can make roti, because I can't make banana bread to this day. So I'm continuously rolling this out. I'm trying to get this shit as thin as possible, because the bigger the paratha, the better. When you see me actually bust it up, it's better if it's like bigger, because there's just more surface area to crack. So I'm rolling this out to be a bit larger than the plate I'm resting it on. On a plate that I covered with saran wrap and a little bit of bench flour, I'm adding the paratha that I rolled out. So I already had a few underneath, and in between each layer I put another layer of saran wrap, because the first time I did this, I don't know who the hell told me to just put the dough on top of each other. Don't do that. The shit will stick. Don't do that. So definitely layer it with some saran wrap. I'm about to roll out a next one, but I feel like it's kind of redundant at this point. So now let's go over to the tawa and actually cook this shit, because I'm hungry as hell. So here's my tawa. It's just, this one is not like the most traditional one. A traditional one wouldn't have like a lip on the side. It would just kind of be flat, and it would be made of cast iron. But I actually got this one from Indian grocers, because I live in Southeast Scarborough, so you guys already know. Had to get that authentic. Pulled up at Markham and Lawrence with the skirt. Went into the store, grabbed the tawa. So I just brushed the same mixture of canola oil and butter or ghee or margarine onto my tawa, and now I put down the first paratha, and I'm also coating the top. Coating the top with this oil mixture is really important, because you could just coat the bottom. I'm speaking this all from experience, by the way. If you just coat the bottom, once the bubbles start to form, as you can see, and the air pockets start to come in between the dough, it gets so dry on top if you don't put butter. So make sure that you moisturize the top of it before you flip it. Okay, so now we're getting ready to flip it. Ooh. So this one is a little bit overcooked slightly. You definitely want to get the browning and the caramelization, which is thanks to the oil and the brown sugar. And now here I'm going to start to bust it up. I'm going to show you like the two methods. I do this method. I find this one works better, where I'm kind of like pulling and pushing it at the same time. Pulling and pushing. Making a bust-up shot gets really messy, by the way, so I apologize for how messy my stove will look after this. So you want to pull and push, pull and push. You see it ripping apart, and you can see the layers forming. That's a sign of a good dough. It needs to be flaky like that. So again, this one's slightly overcooked, but once I let it steam, it'll come out perfectly. So I just put all the cooked rotis in a metal bowl with wax paper, and then I cover it with a towel, another wax paper, and then a towel to steam it. So let's make one more, and let me show you guys. The other way that I bust up the roti is just, so before was like the pushing and pulling method. I'm gonna coin that. In this way, I'm just kind of flinging it in the air, and I'm gonna start to beat it with both of my wooden implements here. Definitely use wooden, do not use metal when you're doing this. So you really wanna like beat the fuck out of it, like whack it, whack it, whack it. Make sure you're getting all the nice crispy, flaky bits of the paratha coming up, and this looks really good. Ooh, ooh, are you crazy? Look at this. This was so delicious, guys. I'm so proud of the work that went into this. There is no reward if you don't put no damn work in. This was really good. I hope I can inspire you guys to try out roti, which can be kind of an intimidating and daunting task, but I want to show you guys that literally anything in the kitchen is possible, and no matter how much experience you have, as long as you go in with a positive mindset, you can fucking do anything and you can cook anything. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys on my next video. This is Eating with Aldene. Peace.